We are ready? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Scott County Planning Advisory Commission meeting, Monday, August 8th, 2022. We will start out with our roll call. Commissioner Henches?
Here.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Huber? Absent. Commissioner Pika? Here. Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Watson?
Here.
Commissioner Von Hoff? Here. This evening, we also have at the end of the podium our planning manager, Davis, in the audience. I see Greg Wagner, our principal planner, Nathan Hall, our associate planner. I see our county commissioner, Tom Wolf, also with us this evening. And I think I missed anyone. I've got everyone. So the next item of business we have is the minutes of the Planning Advisory Commission from July 11th, 2022 minutes. And all of the minutes have been sent to the commissioners. They've had an opportunity to review them. Are there any corrections, deletions, or additions to the minutes as printed? Hearing none, I will call for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Robbins. And a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Henches. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. I've hit the microphone also. So, moving on. Consent agenda. We have nothing on the consent agenda this evening. So our first public hearing will start right now. It's the Water's Edge preliminary and final plat. It's number 2022-053. And Greg Wagner, our principal planner, will be making the staff report. Good evening, Mr. Wagner.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So on the screen is the site location map showing the Water's Edge property in Section 24 of Jackson Township. As you mentioned, the request before the Commission tonight is the two-part plat for preliminary and final plat of Water's Edge, consisting of 4 lots and 1 outlot on 43.51 acres. The applicants are Chris and Randy Kubish, and they're proposing to subdivide 4 single-family. Oh, it's not. It should not. Good. So they're proposing to subdivide 4 single-family residential lots from the 43.51 acre Water's Edge golf course property. The golf course property was originally the golf course itself was created back in the mid-1990s and consists of a driving range and a 9-hole executive golf course. The property is comprised of 6 parcels. So you can see the outline in red of the entire golf course property, and then the gray lines represent the individual parcels. It's the 3 on the south that are, well, I should say the 6 parcels range from 1/2 acre up to 12 acres in size. And the property is zoned Urban Expansion Reserve Cluster. So this is in the Urban Expansion District just outside the city of Shakopee. So this area here is Jackson Township. County Road 79, which is the gray line here, is actually Town Line Avenue. The property on the east side of that road is actually city of Shakopee. And then further to the north is kind of behind this label is also city of Shakopee. So this is in Jackson Township, but adjacent, fairly close to the city. So here's the aerial that kind of better shows you the outline of the golf course, where you can see the individual holes. There's the driving range to the southeast of the property, and then the clubhouse here has access off of the county road. To the north, there are a couple of holes that go into this narrow area, and that's where the development, or where these 4 lots are proposed, which I'll flip to in a minute. But you can see Stonebrook Curve is a paved township road that does go out to Town Line Avenue, which again is County Road 79. When the golf course was originally created back in the mid-1990s, this property was zoned A2, which was a 1 dwelling unit per 10 acre district. So you needed a minimum of 10 acres to have a building right associated with your property. The three parcels that are down on the south side here, so this one and then these two, are all 10 acres or larger in size. The property owner, Gary Laurent, reached out to county staff back in 2015 and asked us to evaluate what building rights were available on the golf course. So recognizing that those parcels existed back in the 1990s, we informed Mr. Laurent that those three parcels would have one building right associated with them, or one development density, depending on how you want to phrase it. So they're existing lots of record. The urban expansion label was created in 2000, 2001. So those parcels predated the urban expansion district. So those three building rights remain with the property. The applicants and the owner met with Jackson Township. As outlined in your staff report, they talked to the township and then also met with county staff and city of Shakopee at the preliminary development review team meeting back in February of 2020 to discuss potential development of the golf course. It was noted in the staff report that one of the things discussed was Jackson Township from a 1980 agreement between the county and the township. City of Shakopee was also involved, as was MnDOT, but there was an agreement that the county board approved in 1980 that granted Jackson Township a number of lots that were displaced by the 169 bypass. So when MnDOT and City of Shakopee and the township and the county did the planning for that highway corridor, the 169 bypass was entirely going through Jackson Township. So the board at the time determined that there were going to be 49 residential densities displaced by the future roadway. And so per that 1980 agreement, those densities were granted to the township to award to landowners within their jurisdiction. Over the years, many of those have been used to where we're down to 36 of the 49, I should say, have been used. So there's 13 remaining. And as I mentioned, the applicants met with the township to discuss those prior to the February 2020 meeting, and then also did meet with the township last November. The original proposal for this plat was a 6-lot proposal. And in your attached to your staff report is a recommendation from the township where they did recommend approval of the 6-lot proposal, meaning the township would award or grant 3 densities to the developer for that for their plat application. What happened since is environmental services staff, with county development, everything is on well and septic. So we require 2 septic sites for every proposed lot. So back in October, November of last year, our environmental staff went out to the site and evaluated the septic sites that were proposed. And what they were finding was that many of the sites were either compacted from repeated driving over by the golf course maintenance equipment, so lawnmowers and other things. Compacted soils do not work for septics. And then the grading for the golf course itself back in the mid-1990s disturbed a lot of soils. So the 6 lots that were proposed would not work. The applicants this spring submitted a 5-lot proposal, and again, our environmental staff went out and evaluated the septic sites and found that we did not have sufficient soils for 5 residential lots. So they revised again, and what you have before you tonight, which I just put up on the screen here, is the proposal for 4 lots. So I mentioned the narrow area along Stonebrook Curve. So you can see lot 1 kind of turned into a long and narrow lot. There's a golf green, I think, right in this location here, and then some fairways and things that the houses and septic sites all had to fit around that graded, compacted soil. So what's before you tonight, we are very confident in the septic locations that are shown here. Our environmental services staff, when I spoke to them late today just to verify, did say that the soils investigations that they've done are good for the sites proposed. So they're essentially recommending approval of the plat as proposed. What we look at in the zoning for the urban expansion cluster, we look at the lot standards here, which are 1 acre minimum non-hydric. So the 4 lots here are all over 1 acre in size. The proposed home locations meet required setbacks. The urban expansion cluster setbacks are smaller than typical. So normally we have like a 30-foot side yard, 60-foot rear yard. Here we have 15 and 30. So these are more city-sized lots. And then the road setback is only 30 feet from the local road right of way. So what you're seeing before you here, as I went through that long narrative, has changed from I think originally 7 lots down to 6 lots to 5 lots this spring, and now we have 4 lots that we finally feel confident that we have sufficient soils for the septic sites on all 4 lots. To the south, so the remainder of the property is shown as Outlot A. The property owner has indicated that they intend to maintain most of the golf course activity. So this area here where the pond is, that's the existing driving range. And then he had provided a preliminary plan on how the 9 executive course holes could be reconfigured. That plan has not been submitted for an official application. That will be a condition of this plat approval, is that if they are planning to continue the golf course, that we have a condition in there, a recommended condition, that the property owner would need to amend the conditional use permit for the golf course and provide the county and township with a plan on how they plan to use the golf course going forward in the future. So that will not be something we would resolve at this meeting tonight. That application would come back before you at a future date, more than likely this fall or winter. The only other thing I'd point out then is you can kind of see grayed out here. We have Stormbrook Curve, which ends in a cul-de-sac. There will be no road extension constructed with this plat, so no changes to the road as it currently exists. But in the future, as this potentially would get annexed into the city of Shakopee, the staff report identified that there is an annexation agreement between the township and the city, but this area is not scheduled for annexation until 2050. So there is 20 years before that would happen. But in the future, this property would be annexed into the city of Shakopee and could then be provided with municipal services. At that time, what our ordinance requires is a ghost plat to show how that development could occur in the future. So you can see here off of Stonebrook Curve, if you follow my mouse pointer, they're showing a future street going to the south property line here. They are showing a cul-de-sac going to the west here. And then off of that future Ghost Plat Street, they are showing another road that would go up here, kind of in the area of that driving range and where the existing clubhouse is. So they're showing how that could potentially be further subdivided 20-some years from now into more residential lots. I wanted to point that out because at the DRT meeting, if we go back to the aerial photo, Stonebrook Curve is right here. To the south in Louisville Township, we have Autumn Trail, which is another paved cul-de-sac. And our ordinance promotes and requires road connectivity, and the city is very supportive of road connectivity as well, mainly for service providers, emergency service vehicles, that we have through streets. We have 2 accesses into, if you come in Stonebrook Curve, or if this road is blocked due to an accident or some emergency, that there would be another way in and out. So eventually what will happen is that these cul-de-sacs would be connected. And that's what this Ghost Plat shows, that the applicants and landowner have a concept that would promote that road connectivity in the future. And also with that, the clubhouse would go away, and really County Highway's only comment was when the clubhouse goes away and the golf course is no longer there, that this access gets removed from the county road. And they're showing how that would occur with that future cul-de-sac. So the applicants have addressed all county's concerns. There was a note in the staff report that the city of Shakopee has reviewed this and they're supportive of the request. It was also reviewed by the city fire marshal, who, because the Shakopee Fire Department responds to fire and medical, so they have no concerns with the additional lots either. The township, as indicated, recommended approval of a 6-lot proposal. We are asking the applicants to go back to the township meeting, which is actually this coming Wednesday. The township moved their meeting from last week to this Wednesday. So they will be attending that to get a new recommendation from the township. We have conditioned our suggested recommendation to this board that it is subject to the township recommendation, and that we would not forward this to the county board for action until we have that, but we anticipate having that later this week. The applicants are here. Chris and Randy Kubish, representatives from Jackson Township are here, and I would stand for any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Commissioner Robbins.
Right, I'm just going to repeat what you said. The township isn't going to vote on this new proposal until this Wednesday, right?
Correct.
And we're conditioning anything on their approval. The 4 lots, it's not 6 lots, it's 4 lots. Am I assuming that there'll be residential properties built on those?
Yes, Commissioner Robbins. So these were, as proposed here, they have home pads. So these would be single-family residential.
Single-family residential.
Correct. Right. Similar to what's across the existing cul-de-sac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Mr. Wagner at this time? Okay, thank you. At this time, if the applicant would like to make any additional comments, they can come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Randy Kubish, Kubish Realty. Greg presented the package well, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, I don't know if there's any questions. Maybe if there are, we'll call you back up. Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to make comments on this application, you can come up to the podium. There is a sign-up sheet at the podium. Please sign in with your name and address, and then start your comments.
Hello, Tom Gillum. I'm a supervisor for Jackson Township, also live on Stonebrook Curve. The only question I'd have for you, Randy, we talked about it in our meetings about the covenants with a 100-foot setback, 30-foot side to side. If you could just comment on that, because that's what we were expecting. That's what you had agreed to. So.
Okay, yep. We had reviewed the covenants of the development that's adjoining this, and we would be adopting them into the size requirements and so forth. You had mentioned something about setbacks.
Yeah.
What were you meaning by the setbacks? The side yards?
Well, side yards and from the middle of the street to closest corner to the house is 100 feet. That's how the other properties were built too.
Okay. I don't know specifically if we'll be able to meet all of those requirements. We've changed the lot sizes, quite a bit to make the septics work. The first lot on the way in, lot number 1, it may be that they'll be 100 feet away. It may be that they would be closer, but all of them do have the ability to have site distances, screened by trees. There are trees along the property line, but I don't know specifically if the 100 foot from the road, what is the current setback requirements? Is it 30 from the right of way? So that would be 66 feet from the center. So that for sure can be met. But I don't know if 100 foot would be on all of them.
Okay, so you have talked to him about the covenant and,
Yeah, the covenants are acceptable, and we would be, able to adopt the house size requirements and so forth.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments at this time on this application? Okay, I see coming up to the podium at this time. I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we close the public hearing.
I have a motion by Commissioner Robbins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Henches. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. At this time, I will entertain a motion for further discussion or action on this item.
Mr. Chairman, based on the criteria for approval listed in the staff report, I recommend approval of the preliminary and final plat of Water's Edge Estates consisting of 4 lots and 1 outlot, which is A on 43.51 acres, noting that this recommendation is subject to approval of the conditions listed in the staff report that must be satisfactorily addressed prior to county board consideration. Further noting that the township will be meeting on Wednesday to further review this, and our recommendation will be based on that.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner Watson. Is there any discussion before I call for a vote? Okay, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. The recommendation will go to the county board pending the township recommendation. Our next item is a public hearing on Chapter 6. It's an ordinance amendment, and I believe that we will have Megan Teska, the county water resources engineer, making the presentation this evening. Good evening and welcome.
Welcome, thank you. I don't get to come before you guys very often.
No. And
They don't
I'm
let me
happy
out-
about that.
They don't let me out of the office very
She
often.
doesn't come before us very often.
I don't think I've ever met you, so it's nice.
Yes, yes. So I'm here before you tonight to give you a little presentation on proposed updates to our Chapter 6 of our zoning ordinance, which is our stormwater management ordinance. Some of these updates are mandated under a new Ms4 permit that the county has. Ms4 is our municipal separate small stormwater system. It's a permit from the state that's issued by the federal government to the state, and then they issue permits to us as the county that regulates stormwater discharges to public waters in our urban areas. So some of these changes to Chapter 6 are based on that updated permit that we now have and we have to do. And some of these changes are based on updates that have come out of meetings within staff discussion over the past year or so. So I'm gonna walk through some of these and kind of give you a brief overview of what they are and why we're doing them, and then I'll stand for any questions, or actually, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to speak up as well. Sorry, this is kind of a different one to present here, so.
Right.
We're going to start off here with a new definition that we're adding to our definitions of fully reconstructed impervious area. This is new language based on the Ms4 permit, and this will pop up again a little bit later in the stormwater ordinance. Basically, this means fully reconstructed is any existing impervious area that you would completely remove and then rebuild on top of. So it would have been impervious before, and you're putting new and impervious on top of it, such as a road that's undergoing major reconstruction or a house that gets demolished and a new house gets put up. Okay, so that is a definition from the Ms4 permit. One of these proposed changes that we have here, sorry, this is not MS4, this is just a general change, is to add wetland buffer sign locations to grading plans that we get submitted. It is a requirement to provide a plan that shows the buffer sign locations when we're doing wetland buffers, but we're not getting those necessarily on the grading plans. And we feel like it'll be easier for people to see where they're supposed to be if they're on grading plans that are submitted. The signs are supposed to be posted, so if they do get knocked down, they do need to be put back up. The county does provide the signs for free, so it's not a cost issue to landowners. So, the next one here under review of grading permits, number 4, is a new item that has come out of discussion with staff. This relates to grading activities that occur without permit. So if somebody does start doing a project without a permit and we find out about it and tell them that they do need to get a grading permit from us, so a violation, they now need to hire a professional to help prepare that plan. We're seeing a lot of grading violations that are difficult to deal with homeowners that don't have the expertise to do the remedies that are necessary. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you're doing it within a city, this isn't going to apply then? Okay.
No, not within the city, just within the unincorporated areas. All right, and this next one under Certificate of Compliance number 5. This is a new requirement that has come out of staff discussion that would require low floor verifications for proposed structures that are adjacent to water bodies, wetlands, ponds that have high water levels established with them. It's only in certain areas that we're concerned about. It's only when the floor elevation is within the minimum height that is required. This is to help ensure that structures are not being built too low.
And how do you determine which structures this would apply to? Would this be ones within the flood maps that are in those areas?
Flood maps adjacent to ponds, it would come up during staff review. The applicant would be notified that this is a requirement.
Okay.
So it's not every single building permit that comes in, it's just ones right next to ponds. And if they're proposing a floor elevation that's high enough, then they wouldn't need to necessarily do the verification. Based on discussion with surrounding cities and areas, yes, this is something that other people are doing as well. Okay. So that is something that did come out of staff discussion. This one is not a requirement under the MS4 permit. So, Okay, that next underline is just a little wording change. All right, here's where we get into the fun MS4 stuff. So, real quick, just a reminder, this map shows our MS4 areas in the county here, if everybody can see this, all these colored areas. It is considered urbanized areas within the county, and the townships get pulled in if they have a little tiny bit of urbanized area, then it applies to the whole township. So you see Louisville, Jackson, and Spring Lake townships. And then some of these rules apply to county roads within the cities as well, or county right-of-ways, but that's kind of a different story. So just so you guys know where some of these areas are.
Excuse me, I have a question on that.
Yes.
So when does this take effect? Because we sometimes do work in townships and we maybe bid a job and that rule wasn't applying at that point, would have been included in our bid, which would be an extra expense.
If something's already gone out to bid, this would not apply.
Okay.
So this is something to be thinking about for future stuff that's coming up. But everything that's going into construction this year should probably have already been bid, hopefully. And we can do a little bit of flexibility if it's something that is already well underway, well designed, stuff like that. So All right, so 3A, B, and C are requirements of the MS4 permit. So there are now slightly different stormwater volume control requirements based on whether a project is in the MS4 boundary or not. So now for areas outside of our MS4 boundaries, we're not proposing any changes to the volume control requirement. For areas within our MS4 boundary, now we have to also consider that fully reconstructed impervious area. Current county ordinance is just based on a net increase generally. So now we have to look at fully reconstructed impervious as well as new proposed impervious to see if the volume control requirement will apply.
I have a question. What is a linear project?
A linear project, I was just gonna get to that. A linear project would be like a road project.
That's what I assumed, but
Yep.
I hadn't heard that terminology.
Yep, so not a single family home, not a commercial, it's basically just roads. And generally it's public roads because they're standalone projects. So now public linear projects have a new requirement for volume control as well, in different ways of calculating that. And that is straight out of the MS4 permit. So we don't really have any wiggle room on those requirements. Any questions about this stuff before I move on? Because this is kind of the.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
just for areas outside of the MSA boundary, just take me through, I mean, I've read this now a couple times.
Mhm.
What's the practical application? Does it mean that you can only have so much runoff water that if you get too much, or tell me what the implication of this is?
Sure. So under current county ordinance, if you are adding 1 acre or more of new impervious area, you have to provide rate control and infiltration volume. So this is basically still the same. So anything outside of our MS4 is still that. We're not proposing any changes to that. Areas within the MS4 boundary now also have to consider fully reconstructed impervious in that 1 acre. So, sorry. Yes, yes. So this is now going to count more for redevelopment kind of projects. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to pull in some of these old sites now that wouldn't have had stormwater back in the day, and they're trying to start getting some of these properties to have to provide water quality and rate control.
So the threshold, you were talking about an acre of impervious. So if all the impervious surfaces within a 10-acre parcel, for example, and there's an acre there, that's when this kicks in, or? Okay, that's kind of the threshold for
Yep.
looking at, okay.
Yep.
And just to be clear, if we didn't have this control, then you can have a small flood. I mean, let's say you did not have this control. Then water could run, you could have places flooded, et cetera, right?
Yes. Yep. Of course.
Thank you.
All right. The next specific standards for volume control kind of relate back to this new wording under the MS4 stuff. So these next few things are just kind of referring back to that.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
As far as flooding, I can only think of Blakely, Henderson. Do we have areas around here that are,
Oh, yes.
we do, like what townships?
Our updated FEMA maps are. Oops. I did the wrong one here. Note, I can turn on our flooding layers.
We've had flooding in lots of townships and cities.
Yes, yes. We have a lot of floodplain layers, and I'm just trying to get these to pull up here. So all along the river, all along our creeks and streams, wetland areas, all these kind of highlighted areas are all within mapped FEMA floodplains, let alone local flooding due to ponding and small storage depression areas that aren't accounted for in FEMA.
Have they happened within the last 5 or 10 years? Like I said, I only remember Blakely, Henderson area.
You know, we get flooding along the river every year. I know there's county roads that end up, you know, getting shut down for a little bit here and there. Blakely is definitely one of the worst areas because it is right along the river there.
Oh, I remember there was one on County Road 11.
Just depends. And there's a lot of factors that go into it, yes. But the county does not maintain drainage systems. We rely on natural drainage. So we put requirements on developing properties to help manage stormwater runoff, which is what this is.
You know, in just historically, the way I've always looked at this, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that you don't want to change the rate of flow off of a property onto another property. And that's basically kind of the standard we've used for many years in planning, is when we're looking at, you know, what the impact of impervious surface is going to have. Is it going to change that flow, increase it or decrease it to the next property? Because all the properties are kind of connected. When you look at the floodplain here and where the water flows. So if you do something on your property and it dramatically changes what happens to 3 neighbors around you, you don't want that to happen. And that's kind of the way I've looked at it. Are we looking at it the right way, first off?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
is that generally,
Yes.
these are the controls that you're talking about that can be used to maintain that.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Does that help?
It helps me get a bigger picture of it, yes.
Yeah.
Chair, does that, like Excel Energy, when they go through ravines and stuff, is that, you know, within that jurisdiction as well? If a public utility like that?
Public utilities are generally regulated under the Public Utility Commission. So those big like power line things would be under a separate permit from what we would permit usually, depending on what they're doing. So sometimes, sorry, that's not a great answer, but
Yeah.
it depends.
Well,
It's-
I think they do well now, but they're existing situations, and well, that's a lot of that.
I don't know this can do that.
What the heck?
Sorry, we can keep going. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I lost my screen for a second there.
It's kind of a loaded question, but just any, like on our property, that's any damage is usually from the 1969 power line, you know, rushing through or whatever, on the hills or whatever. I was just curious if that's in this.
We're not proposing any changes to stuff like that, but you know, we do regulate runoff from large projects, so yes.
Thank you.
Okay. This next section is just a couple things that needed to be added to meet the MS4 permit requirements. It's just exemptions of areas that should not be doing infiltration. So the first one is, you know, fueling and vehicle maintenance areas. We don't want infiltration on like gas stations and stuff like that. And then the next one is dealing with salvage yards and waste recycling facilities. So it's to prevent contaminated water from infiltrating. All right, number 7 here is a new one that came out of staff discussion, and it's a proposed exemption to stormwater management requirements just specifically for public linear trail projects. So it would be a project that is just a trail, not a road and a trail, any of that kind of stuff, but just a trail project that is a public trail. The thought is these types of projects are very difficult to actually provide stormwater management for because they are long and narrow. And it's hard to capture that water and take it to a treatment area. Plus, they also tend to be surrounded by grass and vegetation, which slows down water, provides infiltration, provides treatment there. So number 7 is a proposed exemption for those kind of projects. That is based on staff discussion. That is not an MS4 requirement. So, any questions about those kind of things?
So if it's paved, it's still okay.
If it's paved, it's still okay. It does have to have at least a 10-foot or a 5-foot, vegetation strip adjacent to it. So it can't just go right from trail to a street kind of thing, but yes.
But that's just referring to the impact of that impervious surface of that trail. It'd still have to, if it went to wetlands, still have to go have culverts and things so it wasn't blocking the water
yes,
flow
it would
underneath it and
still
stuff.
have to
So
have-
this is just about the trail itself and the impact of that
Yep.
impervious surface. Okay, got it.
All right. The next one here, this is actually under our bluff standards, and it's just to clarify that shoreland areas can also have bluff areas that meet the definition of a bluff. It's just clarification wording. The next one is just to update the date of the latest Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District rules. That's not a big deal. And here comes the new one, pet waste. This is a requirement under our MS4 permit that we have an ordinance that deals with the proper disposal of pet waste on public lands. And so this is what this is trying to do. This would be for like our public parks and our road right-of-ways that we own. It's requiring people who have their pets in these areas that they need to properly clean up and dispose of their waste.
So most cities have an ordinance like this. So this is for all the unincorporated areas where this might come into effect. Would this be a misdemeanor violation? It says there's
Yep.
citation issued. Okay.
Yeah, it would just be considered a misdemeanor.
Right.
Okay.
And there isn't anything like this? We never had anything like this?
We have not, no.
We have not. Just a clarification, though, this Article J only applies to public property within the MS4.
Yes, it's
Boundary.
worded currently to apply just within our MS4 areas.
Right.
So like Spring Lake, Town Hall, their little park there, and they actually already have signs up and waste stations and stuff like that, so
Right, those kind of areas.
those
Yep.
kind of
Yeah,
areas, yep.
Mr. Chair. So you said something, Tom. So a lot of cities in the county already have these things. You said this is for areas outside of cities? So if I have a pet and I'm in an area outside of a city, then I have to pick up the waste of the pet
If you are on public property,
if I'm public property.
so a road right of way or like a publicly owned park. If you're on your own home,
Right.
that's not what this is to do.
Don't even go.
All right, I think thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Within an MS4 township, Commissioner Robbins. So that's the clarification I'm trying to make here, is that we're not talking about Blakely Township or Helena Township or public land in Cedar Lake Township, to my knowledge. We're only talking about public property in Jackson Township, Louisville Township, and Spring Lake Township.
All right, that does clarify it for me, thank you.
Was New Market Township one?
The city of Elko, New Market, I think, is an MS4 designated community.
Yeah,
But not New Market Township.
when the new census officially comes out, they may be, because it's the census numbers that determine where the urbanized areas are, so.
I wrote down New Market, Spring Lake, Jackson, and Louisville. That's not New Market.
I don't believe that New Market
think it was
Township
just-
actually is yet.
I saw the city of Elko, New Market.
The city is, yes.
Well, I could tell you, I live in Prairie Lake. Crystal Lake is behind me, and there's a walking path, and you wouldn't believe the mess back there. Unbelievable. But it's wooded, and nobody sees the people.
So Murphy Hanrahan would be in that too. Would be covered by this too.
Prairie Lake Park.
Yep, but they
That's the
fall
city of, that's Credit River, no.
City of Credit River, and I believe a little bit of Savage.
Mr. Chair, and what I think you said it, but once again, if I'm out with a pet and I don't do that, then is that a misdemeanor or a fine or what?
A misdemeanor, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the dog gets off scot-free.
I guess it's up to whoever's writing the ticket who gets cited, but.
Any other comments on this? Are there any questions that we haven't, and we've been peppering you with questions.
I didn't realize I really cleared out the room.
Yeah. I tell you, I've been planning a long time, and I had to read it 3 or 4 times. And I didn't know a lot of this stuff here, so it's been very enlightening for me certainly, and I'm sure a lot of the board about this, and really important for the county and for our lands. So thank you for that. Are we looking for a motion on this?
It's for protocol, this is a public hearing, so you will have to open the public
All
hearing.
right, excellent. Did you have anything else? I didn't want to cut you short.
Nope, that's it. I'm here for any other questions or comments, or feel free to call me anytime with anything about stormwater.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great. This is a public hearing. Anyone who would like to make comment on this matter before us can come up to the podium at this time, sign your name and your address. I don't see anybody running up to the podium right now. Give it just a few more seconds here. There's no one else who would like to make comment on this. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
To close the public hearing, I have a motion by Commissioner Watson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robbins. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. We are looking for an action on this item here before us.
Mr. Chairman, recommend approval of zoning ordinance amendments to chapters 1 and 6 as presented in the staff report and attached exhibit, and that this item be forwarded to the county board for consideration and action.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Henches, is there any further discussion on these changes to amendments to chapters 1 and 6? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a vote at this time. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. It will be going through the county board for consideration and action. Thank you very much for your report this evening and for your work on that. Do we have anything from the planning manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll give you a update here. A couple of items that you recommended went to the county board since we last met on July 12th. The county board did approve the final plat of Amazed Acres. That created 37 lots in section 21 of Spring Lake Township. Last week on August 2nd, the board did approve the CUP amendment for Interlock Concrete Products to expand their building and operations out there in the Sand Creek Industrial Park. So those are the 2 items that you recommended for approval. Just a couple of other notes. I have several of them. Also on August 2nd, the board set a public hearing for August 16th to review the conditional use permit for Mid-America Festivals, or more commonly known, the Renaissance Festival. There is some road improvements that the Renaissance Festival has been committed to doing to improve some of the backed up traffic issues that occur around that site during their fall festival weekends. And this public hearing was set in motion with some uncertainty whether those improvements would get made. We are hearing that they have contractors out there on site this week and next to get those improvements done. So I'm anticipating that public hearing may get pulled as long as all of the improvements are in place. So I just wanted to make sure the Planning Commission was aware of that. For that type of review, we can go right to the county board, and given the time issues in the festival starting up on August 20th, this hearing went right to the board instead of what we typically have in going to a Planning Commission setting. Also, the county board is looking at setting a public hearing at their first meeting in September to adopt a moratorium on the sales and distribution manufacturing and marketing of THC edibles. If you've been following the state news on July 1st, a certain amount of THC products are now legal for sale. And many of our cities are adopting these types of moratoriums to allow time to research kind of the proper zoning for that type of sale and land use. And I believe the city of Prior Lake, the city of Jordan, maybe the city of Savage have also enacted moratoriums for 1 year to do the research needed to and determine their zoning studies.
Yeah, Brad, just, what's the abbreviation stand for?
Oh, gosh,
It's a drug.
it's a drug.
It's a drug.
THC is the active component in marijuana. It's tetrahydrochloric something. And it's been a while for
Okay,
me.
but it's a drug, and so that's what you're talking about.
Derivative of marijuana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so the board would be looking at adopting that type of a moratorium in early September, and that would essentially prohibit the sale of those type of products, any of our establishments in the unincorporated area for up to 1 year. And then presumably then we would have ordinances updated in place for that type of use. Anecdotally, we've heard that some folks are going out to different events. Like there may have been a place at the Lakefront Music Festival where someone had a tent to sell these products. And so there was thoughts with given some of our popular fall events and destinations in the townships, we should probably get some type of moratorium in place to be able to address this situation.
Brad, do we have any hard data or any research on consuming these products, however you consume them, what the impact is on like your ability to drive or all the rest of that?
I think
You make it legal, but
If you put the CBD oil on your skin, you can fail a drug test.
you can feel what?
Fail a drug test.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Commissioner
Now,
Hedges,
that's
I think
pretty
there's
scary.
a lot of research. The League of Minnesota Cities and the Association of Minnesota Counties are both doing a lot of research in this topic right now and coming up with some model ordinances for really all communities to consider. But behind that is a lot of the research that you're talking about.
Yeah, they have not yet developed a test. Like for alcohol, there's a certain level that indicates
Right.
intoxication.
Right.
But is it,
From a legal point, for THC, there's just a positive or a negative.
Okay.
So it just says you either have used THC or you haven't. The statute is written such so you can be charged with DUI for impaired driving while under the influence of THC, but there isn't a level for intoxication. So that hasn't been done.
so am I right in assuming that if I took that right now, I'd be giddy, I'd be drowsy, something?
It depends too on the person and how much you take, but yes. So there is this is different than CBD oil, because when they develop hemp, they're supposed to deliberately take the THC out of the components. But the problem with it is the part that they use to develop CBD oil is the part of the plant that has the highest content of THC. And when you cultivate, and it sounds like I know a lot about this, but just from my previous narcotics experience as a narcotics officer, I know this. But when you develop and grow hemp, the THC levels get very high. And so when you do edibles, and when they're not necessarily in the way that the statute apparently is written, is that there isn't a lot of controls in how they're made, so people don't know. They don't know. And I think there's kind of an unknown on this.
Yeah.
On that. And that's part of the problem with this and why we need to have a moratorium,
Right.
to get more information and find out where this is right. And we don't have anything in zoning right now, but I would imagine that would even apply to this.
We do not, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at my notes here. The city of New Prague, Belle Plaine, Prior Lake, Savage, and Jordan have all adopted these types of moratoriums, or they're going to be on the agendas here in the next few weeks. I'm not sure about Shakopee. And they're looking at both a zoning moratorium and then just a licensing moratorium. I think it's still uncertain whether you would be able to do this through licensing of different businesses.
Is there, you know, and then when we do research on these things, since in Minnesota there's been a lot of experience, but Colorado and some of the other states have had a lot of experience with this, and be interesting to see what their cities and counties have done in terms of dealing with this, because they've been dealing with it for a number of years, really, in dealing.
I'll keep you updated on that. If I assume if the moratorium takes place, the direction will be probably from staff in this body to start looking at some of these ordinances and crafting those up. So it will come to you eventually as a planning commission. Next topic is training. I sent an email out, and you have a printout in front of you of a training session coming up in September from the Minnesota Counties of Governmental Trust. Actually, one of our commissioners heard about this and passed it on, thought it would be good for us to provide that kind of training opportunity. And we have done this in the past. We would cover your registration fee, your mileage, and it looks like lunch is included. I was going to say we could probably even pick up lunch for you, but it looks like that's included in the registration. And so the county would cover that cost. It would just be your time and ability to get up there for that type of session. And the presenters are pretty known to us on staff. They've helped us out, and we've needed them from some different contentious land use permits. And I heard Commissioner Johnson say earlier that one of them lives in Prior Lake. Jason Kabushik is a Prior Lake resident. Yep. And Jason gets very involved in some of our cases if we need it. Anyways,
if it's enough people, like 6, 7 people, then would we take a little van or a bus or something for the county? Or do we go up individually?
Good question, Commissioner Johnson. I didn't think about that as much. I figured everyone would go up individually. But if that's an issue, then let me know and we'll figure out if there's something else we could arrange for transportation. Certainly not a requirement. I know it falls on the 14th. I forget which day of the week. Did I say that?
Tuesday.
Is it a Tuesday? So it may not always work for everyone. You're not required to do this. I just want you to be aware of it. And if you have interest, let me know. And we'll get the registration paid and get you set up.
What's the deadline?
I don't see one. You probably have a couple of days before the date, to be honest. Oh, let's see here. Canceled by September 7th. So I don't know if there's a deadline. Next topic, one decision the county board made earlier this year is they want to go back to term limits for the Planning Commission, the Board of Adjustment, and the Parks Commission. And so we worked under term limits before, and then they went to a system where you would get reappointed every year, and there was no maximum number of years you could serve. Now they're going back to how it used to be. They want to set a maximum of 3 3-year terms. So in other words, a person could serve on these boards for 9 years if they got appointed for that long. So that will start January 1, and they would like to have us kind of sort out how to stagger this. So in other words, some of you may tell me privately, you know, I'm going to be on this for quite a while, so I wouldn't mind getting that 3-year appointment. And other of you may call me up and say, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. Why don't you put me on the 1-year or 2-year? You don't need to tell me that right now, but privately, if you want to pass that information, let me know, and then we'll plan accordingly so we know which term
I
to put
don't
in.
quite understand. It's 3-year or 1 year?
No, it's 3-year terms starting January 1st.
But they'll probably stagger it.
They want to stagger it.
2 3 year,
Oh, I
2
see.
1 year, 2 2 years or something, so they're not coming up
Okay.
every year, so you come.
Cities typically do that. Savage does a planning commission, economic development, you can go 3 3-year terms, and you're off.
Right. They used to do it here.
Yep.
When I started here, I was filling out 18 months of a 3-year term for somebody, and that was my commitment, and look what
So
happened.
let me just clarify. Everybody here, as of now, can serve 9 more years. Is
Correct.
that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't matter
Starting
if
from
you've already
scratch.
served 10.
Well, let me think about that for just a second, Mr. Commissioner Robbins, because I think they want some of you to commit to a 2-year term and then a 3 and a 3 if you get
Right,
reappointed.
right.
Okay,
So
I
then
have
it would be less
I have
than
a
that.
friendly, collaborative question. What if we don't?
Don't want to serve any.
What if we all say 3-year terms and stand our ground?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just
Maybe make
asking.
his job more difficult.
It's a
What?
fair
We make
question.
his job more difficult.
It's a fair question. I don't know yet how we respond.
It's, I realize it's now a rule, whatever, but I'm one of the newer members here, and I learned so much from the people that have been here for a long time. And just to have some arbitrary rule that you step out after 3 years and bring in somebody who came in like me and didn't know anything, seems like it is really not in the best interest of this group. But what do I know? But I had to say it.
Well said.
Hmm.
Well said.
Yeah, actually, it could be up here up to 9 years, but that 9 years is then the maximum. Yeah. And that's where you can argue that you should be able to stay on longer than 9 years. But that is what the board has decided. But starting January 1, we would be looking for some of you to let me know if you want to be on that 3-year term appointment or the 2-year term appointment, so we can start staggering you a little bit. Or you can tell me you want to be on the 1-year appointment or the no-year appointment. I'm open to whatever feedback you provide me.
But what Donna said, if we all decided we wanted to be on the 3-year, so we'd all, at the end of 9 years, all of us are done, and you're gonna start with a whole new board and new
Yeah,
experience.
staff would not like.
We had 1 year where 5 turned over
Mhm.
in my head.
That's so
Two.
difficult.
Yeah, it was only 2 of us came back.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
I can't.
No,
Okay.
that was not good planning and stuff. And there's the continuity, you're right about the knowledge that
I know.
goes on and
So inquiring minds want to know why.
Your point is well taken, Donna, because, we all came in with, some senior heavies sitting there, and we could learn, we kind of listened.
Yes.
right.
Picked off what they were saying and how they handled themselves. But we were all come in here out of the blocks, first time, first up, would be like, oops.
Yeah. But my question to Brad was, why? I mean, they changed the rule. Inquiring minds want to know why.
I can only.
Poor Brad.
No, it's fine. I can only speculate that the commissioners want to see more turnover, more different perspectives on this board over time, over a decade where you have, someone can serve up to 9 years, and then at that point, they bring in some different perspectives.
I've got an idea. We
my
can
only
all say
guess.
1 year.
But maybe those of you that work on some city planning commissions with this term limits, what are the reasons stated to you?
We had term limits, yep.
But look at, like, I've been on 25 and Ray over 20. So of course they probably think we should get some new blood in here.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But the interesting thing, and I've been associated with government for over 40 years, is elected tend to be on more shorter term. This is the one body in government that really looks long term, and this is that it's different. This is a different perspective, and I think that it really fits in well with the rest of government on how it works, and it's just different. And the best planning commissions I've seen, and the best groups, are the ones who have that long-term view, and part of that is being around. That's part of it. That's just an element of it. And I've always felt with this group, especially, just the varied backgrounds and where people come from very different backgrounds and experiences, has really led to good decisions coming out of here. So I don't know. I can see that, and I understand that in a growth. This is a growth county, and by any a point of evaluation. But I also think that there's something about you know, bringing in experience and knowledge. So somewhere that balance exists. And
Is there, this feels like it's punitive, I'll just say it. Is some reflection on the way this committee votes or things that have happened in the past where they feel like they need to clean house a little bit?
No, that's never been expressed to me.
Mr. Chairman, I think part of it is the fact that they want to increase the opportunities for other people to serve.
yeah,
You know, I mean, there's nothing personal about this, and there's certainly no reflection. But I'm guessing that they say, look, we want to give increased opportunities for a lot of people to have this.
yes. I would agree with that. If they weren't happy, they would boot everybody. I mean,
Okay.
no, it literally has happened. I've seen it happen in everything
My
be
only
done. And I don't
concern
get that sense at all.
is that we've got people on this board that have been on a long time. And the newer people coming in rely on you three and this one to know the history. And we have cases that come up here and they go, yeah, do you remember back, 10 years ago when we looked at this? And that's invaluable to newer people sitting on. I mean, I've got my own memories now because I re-upped a couple of times. But boy, in the beginning, I was always looking this way to see what everybody had to say and then asking them questions afterwards and getting them to help new people. So it's difficult. This is not an easy board to sit on. There's a lot of stuff you have to know.
Well, cities, it's not really as broad as when we have townships and all, lot big, varied issues compared to a city,
Mhm.
I
Right.
think.
And I was on planning commission for 10 years and before I came to this. And this is a very different environment in a city.
Mhm.
I mean, and we dealt with, we spent a lot more time dealing with one foot setbacks. You're dealing with city lots and as opposed to very different set of issues in this. So the learning curve is high in this. But I like, different people have come in, and what I also found on these boards is, especially in planning, is people will come in and if it's not right for them, they leave within a couple of years.
Yeah.
They'll do a year or two and then they move on and they don't stay. People who stay have, I think, again, this different type of commitment to this because there's a lot of learning to do it.
Yeah, there is.
And these public hearings in this are as contentious and can get as contentious when you talk about where people live and what's happening near them. They are some of the most contentious public hearings that you can have. And we've had this room filled up a number of times with people very passionate about what's happening in around where you live or where you work. Those are big issues.
Yeah, you're right, though. We rely on,
Yeah,
we're always
we
looking
do.
at that.
We've had a couple of them that haven't been angry, but at least they've gone for it. So we've
Right.
seen a little of it.
Right.
Oh, but we have had this room packed with people
Yeah, we haven't seen that.
that
Yeah.
were, you had to tell them a couple of times to,
Yes. Well, there were, yes, and we've had very contentious ones where we had to have deputies actually at them and oh yes.
Really?
Oh yes. Yeah. People were, but that's the way where rubber hits the road in my mind on government in terms of people coming and saying, this is how we feel about what's happening. And this board being able to respond to that. And I think it does a very good job with that. But there's a lot of issues that roll into that on how that happens. I have never gotten any feedback that the county board was unhappy with the performance of this committee or this commission at all. And there might be other values, that they want more involvement from people or something. That's my guess.
wish Tom would have stayed.
Yeah, he probably knew it.
That's probably why he left.
He said, "Oh,
He knew it was coming, so he left. Yeah.
Feet don't feel me now.
So,
The thing is, it is volunteer, so, you do what you can, and
Right.
that's, where Brad talked, man, I don't know, so you do what you think you.
but that's and that's I love the different backgrounds that everybody comes from, and that's where you get really good decisions because inevitably, somebody will say something on the board and brings a different perspective that none of us could see from that. And I love that part about it. And that's the whole idea of a volunteer, of people coming from the community and doing that. So anyways, we got off on a very philosophical discussion.
Good discussion. And I did ask after 9 years, are you really up? And the answer is yes, you're up until the next year unless there's an opening that they can point you back for another 9 months. So there is always a workaround. But that happens January 1st. So between now and then, if you have thoughts on this, just let me know. And if all of you here tonight say, I'm going to be on that 3-year term appointment, then we'll figure out what to do. Bus tour. So staff and I have been kind of thinking about that tour a little bit more, and we think it'd be really beneficial to see the YMCA camp, the Fieldstone Industrial Park, and then we were thinking of a couple of places either on that way or coming back. So I think with time, we'd really just focus on the eastern part of the county, so Spring Lake, maybe a little bit of Cedar Lake, and Newmarket Township. We were thinking of some date in September, and the one question is what days or times of day work best for this commission? Do all of you have the ability to take afternoons off to go on a tour like this?
Brad, we have a great big horse show at the end of the very last week in September and the first week in October. It's 3 days. It's whatever is the Friday in September and then the next 2 days. So that's the only time I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Right, and I'm gone from September 15th to about the 28th.
September 15th to the 28th?
Yep.
That's good to know. Jay, do you have any conflicts?
Make anything work?
And then afternoons could work? All right.
I had a couple other ideas.
Yep.
There's a paintball place in Newmarket Township that's in that area. I've never been back there.
It's right behind my farm.
Oh, we were talked about
Yeah,
that.
it's right behind my
And you
farm.
heard okay. Have you ever been in there?
Yes, twice to complain to them, and we worked it out 10 years ago.
You think that
That's
the board
Ames,
would like
Ames,
that?
one of the Ames kids owns it. One of Dick Ames' nephew owns it. It's a really nice person.
Do you think anybody on the board would be interested in seeing it in case we have another one come forward?
You know, this is going to sound dumb. I'm not sure you could get a bus down the road to get in there.
No, it's pretty, I've been down there.
A little
I
teeny,
did
yeah.
a charity event down there, and it's well, you could get the bus down there. I think you could get down to it, but just seeing it, and you know this, it's kind of low and you know,
And there's
you can't
not a
really
lot
see it.
to see.
No, because it's just
It's a
woodlands.
paintball place.
Yeah.
And then another one is Sand Creek Adventures, which is
Oh.
a zip line place.
Yep, that would
But
be
I don't
good.
know if that's much either.
No, that's a good idea. And maybe a solar garden or two on the way.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That wildflower place that was in St. Lawrence. Sponsels, Greg and I talked about sponsels. They put up this shed for a wedding barn.
Yep.
And
I'm excited.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll
I
start
did
putting.
have
Great idea.
Renaissance on there, but I guess that's not an issue. And the KOA campground, but that's getting further away, so that'd take.
All right, we got some good ideas. We'll start picking some dates, getting them on your calendars so you can hold them. Looking at an afternoon session on a weekday. The only other update I have is we did hire a new administrative assistant who will be the clerk to the planning commission. Her name is Carrie, and Carrie will start next Monday. And so we will have her at our next meeting, and she might be sending out packets and other information to you over time. Carrie Wiskovich, I think is the pronunciation.
We'll try not to drive her away as fast as we did the next one.
Very nice, the last one.
That's all I have for an update, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Anything else for the cause? Motion to adjourn? Motion. All in favor for what? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.